Today we're going to be talking about myth busting in mental. I'm sorry. I have to start again. Okay. And
Action.
welcome to Estrada Sisters Connect. I'm your host, Veronica Estrada.
And I'm Patricia Estrada.
And today we're going to be talking about busting myths is as it pertains to therapy.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you, sister. First of all, we're super glad to be back. This is our first recorded, pre-recorded talk, but we're super excited to bring you regular episodes throughout August. So welcome back if you've already seen some of our talks. As Veronica said, we're going to be talking about myth busting. It's super important for us to talk about all the things that people think about when it comes to therapy. And at this point, we're talking about just normal talk therapy. My myth that I'm busting is that therapy always has to be deep and dark and scary and heavy. It definitely does not have to always be that way. Number one, you have the ability to set boundaries. You have the ability to say, I'm not comfortable talking about that, or I'm not ready to talk about that, or I had never thought about that. Can I get back to you? Remember, you are the client, you are the patient, you're the one that's in control. You're seeking this person out for help. So, not like that's number one. But number two, like, seriously, a therapist doesn't actually want to get into the deep, heavy stuff, I think. If we think of therapists as humans, as people, like, why would you go into your job and decide that you're going to do the most difficult thing today? That doesn't even have to do with you. But anyway, I like to remember that my therapist is a person, as a human, like a person with like emotions, and who knows what their like their day is going like before they're meeting with me. Obviously a good therapist is not going to like let you know that they're having a rough day.
Right. Yeah, I know. I didn't think of that, but that's a good point.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is that like therapy does not always have to be heavy and dark and like super like deep, like gunky spiritual work, because
Right.
you're in control. And number two, like the therapist, so besides that human aspect, right, a good therapist is actually not going to go any further than you are ready to go. A good therapist is going to wait for you to say something enough times to where they can then say, okay, well, you've mentioned X several times before. Do you want to talk about that? And then at that point, you're able to say, sure, or I'm not ready, or I'm not comfortable. And then also, another thing that therapy is or can be is, instead of like, if in the beginning, you're going to want to talk about why you were going to therapy and whatever it is that drew you to seek
Mm-hmm.
therapy, right? But
Right.
um even after you've already been going, sometimes you just talk to them about how your week has been going, or your 2 weeks, depending on how often you see each other, and you just kind of like rattle off everything you've been doing, and therefore get validation as to why you're feeling overwhelmed. Because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
times, like, I mean, I spent a very long time just doing that with my therapist, honestly. Really just probably over a year, just doing that, if not more. And then
Mm-hmm.
there were definitely times when she would try to kind of ask me, and I would just not be ready, or we would lightly touch on the subject and then move on. So therapy does not always have to be deep, dark, heavy, and scary. It can definitely just be a place for validation. It can also be a place for just happy talk. Like, every once in a while, it's rare, but every once in a while it feels so good to just tell her, you know what, Patty, because my therapist name's Patty, is you know what, Patty, I'm actually doing really good. And these are all the reasons why. These are the different things that I've been doing this week, or these are the things that I've got lined up for this week. And she's just there to say, wow, I'm super proud of you because I know that in the past that has been difficult, or in the past you've had a lot of anxiety around that kind of thing. And look at you now, happy about it all.
Mhm.
So therapy does not always have to be deep, dark, scary. You do not have to talk about more than you're ready to. You have the power to set boundaries, and a good therapist will not push you further than you are ready to go. So that's my myth busting for today. Veronica, what's yours?
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. That almost made me feel emotional too when you were talking about just being witnessed by someone that sees your growth. That's so important, right? That is everything. And sometimes we forget, but it's really beautiful to have that relationship with someone. And my myth busting is that all therapists are good therapists.
Mm.
So as because I started going to therapy in my late teens and then was on and off. I've had a lot of experiences with talk therapy in the beginning for the first, let's say 10 years, maybe, yeah, about 10 years. And I now look back and I realize that some of the experiences I had with my therapist um, didn't need to happen, that I did not need to hear more. I'll give you a live example. Like what would happen is I would mention something about a traumatic event that happened to me, and then she would talk about her traumatic event that happened to her and got into detail about it, and or would ask me questions that were really like probing at something that I was really struggling with talking about.
Wow.
And she was like asking, just the way she was going about it, and then bringing in her own experiences and making it a little bit about her instead of about my experience. That really turned me off to wanting to share more with her, because then I was getting, I don't want to say re-traumatized, but I was then getting her experience mixed in with my experience. And yeah, it was nice to know that I wasn't the only one that something like that happened to, but the topics were quite sensitive, and that is not, I think, appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely take the consultations when you are looking for a therapist, like take those very seriously. And to the extent that it's possible, have a therapist that is perhaps of your same ethnic background, because I have had a lot of, white therapists, and the level of understanding, compassion, empathy, and just love I got from my Latina therapist that I found on Therapy for Latinx and or Latinx therapy really changed the game for me, because she was an immigrant from Bolivia and understood a lot of the cultural details or cultural, I don't know, everything that comes with being Latina, first generation, firstborn, like all the things, all the complexities.
Stuff. Mm.
Yeah. So that's my myth busting for today, that just because you get assigned, like a lot of work programs have therapists that they work with or they assign you, really do some due diligence and go with your gut as you are looking for a therapist. Or if you have a therapist now and something's like kind of rubbing you the wrong way, like your gut is telling you something's wrong, definitely listen to that. Take another look at that. Ask your friends if they have therapist recommendations. Who do they work with? Who do they love? Where did they find their therapist? And do that due diligence and really listen to your heart about it, because it doesn't have to be more uncomfortable than therapy already is, right?
Tell me about it. Thank you so much for sharing that, sister. Thank you for sharing that specific example so that people can understand what you mean by that. And I think it's super important to, like you were just saying, talk to your friends. I think that if you're watching this and you have already taken therapy, please talk about it. For the love of God, talk about it. More people than you know want to know what your experience has been like, who they should probably go see, who they should not go see, etc. So thank you for mentioning that. Let's definitely mention in the details, we will put, we'll definitely tag Latinx therapy and therapy for Latinx, as well as any others that we may not have thought about right now. But those are two resources in the US that you can look for. I myself went through betterhelp.com years ago. This was in January of 2018. They were having like a New Year's special. I had a great deal. I'm not sure what they are now, but it was, and I'm not sure how it works now either, because I know that they've changed their platform a little bit, I think, as they've grown so much. But if you are in the international realm and you're not in the United States, but you're wanting to have somebody, you know, with the either that's at least an English language, you know, person, or, you know, even better, from perhaps your same cultural background, online therapy is fabulous. And now after the pandemic, it's all the easier to find online, you know, help. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this Estrada Sisters talk, Estrada Sisters Connect. We're doing a little rebranding because we love to connect. This is such a great opportunity for us, not only as sisters to connect, but just to share these same topics that we talk about with everybody else that that follows us, that, you know, might follow you if you share it. This is the kind of thing that we're always talking about, and we're super excited to bring this type of information to everyone in our community and then some. So thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. And our objective here is to connect with you so that you can then connect with your community and your people and your family and bring about that change that you want to see in the world. Right. So thank you so much for tuning in, and check out the next episode and the past episodes on both of our Instagram pages. And we will see you next time.
Bye.